Hey guys, we are talking circles today, circumference, diameter, radius. It's very exciting. So this first problem asks us to find the circumference given the diameter, and we're going to round our answer to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so first of all, what's circumference and why are we looking for it? Well, the circumference is, you could call it like the perimeter of the circle. It's the measure around the circle. That is our circumference. The diameter is a measure from one end of the circle to the other, and it goes through the center point. So that's what they have given us here. Well, something that we know is that our circumference is equal to pi times our diameter. Now, what the heck is pi? I'm going to go over it really fast. If you need a more in-depth example, I've got a pretty sweet video I will link for you in the corner. But basically, pi is this cute little symbol here. Hold on, let me grab my paper. This cute little symbol here, which is a representation of the number, the decimal that we get on every circle when we take the circumference and we divide it by the diameter. Now, if this is feeling like a lot of words I'm throwing at you, it's okay. Just know for now that pi helps us figure out a lot of different things about circles because of this relationship that exists, okay? So I know that the circumference of this circle is equal to pi times the diameter. Okay, so look, I have my diameter. So my circumference is equal to pi times my diameter, which is 17. Okay, now here is where some teachers may differ. Okay, some teachers may say, use the pi button on your calculator. Most calculators have them. This one is right here, if you can see that pi button. Some teachers may say they may want you to round pi, and they may say use 3.14 for pi. Okay, it's rounded off. Different teachers will tell you different things, and typically they will say on each assignment what they want. Okay, so I'm going to show you sort of 3 different ways you could write this answer. On this first one, the other ones we'll just do one type of answer, okay? So the first type of answer your teacher might want is what we call an exact answer, meaning pi is a decimal that goes on forever, so we have to round at some point. But in order to kind of avoid that, something we can do is leave it in terms of pi. So I could leave my answer as my circumference equals 17 pi. If your teacher asks for the exact answer or for the answer in terms of pi, that is what they are looking for. Okay, that's my answer. Another way they might ask for it is they might say, use 3.14 for pi. Okay, if we were to do that, I would say my circumference is equal to pi, and if my teacher told me to use 3.14 for pi, there we go, then times that by my diameter, which is 17, pull out my calculator, and I get 3.14 times 17. And then this said to round to the nearest hundredth, which I am at. So I get that the circumference is 53.38. Okay. So there is another way I could write my answer. And the other way I could round or write my answer is if my teacher said, use the pi button on your calculator. Okay, so then I would have, same thing, my circumference is equal to pi times 17. Okay, so then I use my pi button, pi times 17, and I end up with 53.407, and it keeps going. So this asks me to round to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 points after my decimal. If you need a rounding decimals reminder video, I'll link one in the corner. So this is going to round to 53.41 equals my circumference. Okay. So this is why sometimes some teachers want it as the exact answer, because depending on what you use for pi, your answer is going to come out a little differently rounded. Okay, so do whatever your teacher asks you to do. If they want you to leave it in terms of pi, if they want you to use 3.14 for pi, or if they want you to use the pi button on your calculator. Okay, now for the rest of these, I'm just going to use the pi button and round it to the nearest hundredth. Okay, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of them. So let's look at this guy. We are going to find the circumference again, the measure around my circle. This time we are given the radius. The radius goes from the center of my circle to the end. Okay, so there are two ways we can think of this that are really the same thing. My circumference equals pi times my diameter, right? And even though I haven't been given my diameter, I can figure it out pretty easily because I know that from here to here, because this is a circle, this is also 24 inches. Oh, I should have put yards over here, by the way. Pretend I did. 53.38 yards and everywhere. Okay, so this is 24 inches as well, which means across the whole thing, or the diameter, is 48 inches, right? Okay, so I can do the circumference equals pi times the diameter. My diameter is 48. Another way you can think of it, which is really, it's the same thing, we just did it over here, is you can also think of it as the circumference equals 2 pi r, because 2 times r is 2 times the radius, which is what we did here. Okay, so either way you want to think of it. So I am going to do my circumference equals pi times my diameter, which is 48, or 2 times my radius, which is also 48. And then I am going to use my pi button and times it by 48. And I end up with 150.796. So that's going to round up to 0.80. Oh, inches. I'm going to remember this time. So that is my circumference of that circle. Okay, now these two problems are giving me the circumference and they want me to find the diameter, and in this one, the radius. Okay, so we're really doing the same thing. It's just giving us something else. Okay, so the circumference, or around the circle, is 35 centimeters. What is the diameter? Well, remember that my circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. So I've been given the circumference this time and I want the diameter. So I want d, or the diameter, alone. So I would divide both sides by pi and end up with that my diameter is equal to the circumference divided by pi. Did that make sense? Oh my gosh. All right, so now let's go ahead and plug these numbers in. My diameter is equal to my circumference, which we've been told is 35, over pi. Okay, let's go ahead and plug that in. So I have 35 divided by pi, and I get, again, we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, so I'm going to get that my diameter is 11.14, and we are in centimeters. That is my diameter. All right, look at that. Okay, last one, we're looking for the radius. So what we can do is just solve it the same way, right? Find my diameter and then divide it in half, and that'll give me the radius. Okay, so my diameter equals the circumference over pi. Okay, so my diameter equals, the circumference is 42 divided by pi. Okay, so we take 42, divide it by pi, and we get that my diameter is 13.3690. It keeps going. Okay, but remember, this is the diameter, and I want the radius this time, which is half my diameter. So I'm going to take this big decimal and divide it by 2, and then I'm going to round it. So when I divide this by 2 to get my radius, My radius equals 6.68 rounded meters. There we go, guys. Okay, I hope this was helpful. If you need to check out that What is Pi video, I will link it in the corner for you. Thanks.